Quiet. Am I gonna have to separate you two? Okay. Scab.
Here.
Good. Samantha.
Hi.
Okay. Eucalyptus.
Yuki's here.
Hey. Haven't seen you in a minute. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling fresh, Miss
Good.
Myers.
John. John.
Here.
Now when I call you, speak a little louder, okay? Okay, good. Tenderloin?
I'm here.
Tendy?
Here.
You're looking tender. Reciprocity. Good, over there.
H-E-R-E-E.
Reciprocity. Good. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Susan?
She's sick, Mrs. Myers.
Oh. She's not here? That's weird. She hasn't been here 3 days. Okay. Hope she's okay. All right. All right, good. Good, everybody. Thank you for being quiet. Thank you for being cordial. Appreciate that. Today, we are talking about how to effectively make decisions, okay? If you're watching on YouTube, hello. This is your teacher, and I'm here to school you in how to make difficult decisions, okay? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to be talking to the camera too, okay, kids? I need you to be quiet. This video is important. It's going to help me get paid more than what we pay, more than what your teacher gets paid.
Oh man, that's messed up.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, how to make decisions and get out of freeze mode. Okay. Put the chapters to where everybody can kind of click through at their own thing. Keep what resonates. Don't take what doesn't. Not here to really stir the pot, just to get your mind thinking, okay? First premise. What we need to understand, everybody, is that from what we know, 4 trauma responses that we may have when faced with decisions that might be triggering. Fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, okay? Fight is, as much as you understand the word, it is that. It's engaging in either verbal, physical fights. Flight is where you flee the situation. Either that can be emotionally disengaging when you feel dysregulated, or it can be actually physically leaving the room, okay? We've got fawn, which is something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about enough, but it is where we maybe revert back to an old pattern of behavior or an adolescent behavior. So I think a lot of times this plays in relationships where maybe you're in trouble or somebody is confrontational with you and you talk a little bit sweeter, you know? It's something like that. There is a fawning response. Think of a baby deer being frozen. Now that's the one we're going to touch on today, okay, everybody? Get your pen and paper out. Frozen, okay? You need to let go of these frozen responses. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what led me to being paralyzed in my decision making, okay? You guys can tune out for now. I'm going to be talking to the camera. So I have been, much like most people, in a state of frozenness for, I feel like, over a year now. It seems like every decision that I was feeling pulled to make previously that I made and went through and things ended up working out, quote unquote, it ended up leaving me in a state of unfulfillment. It led me to just question my decisions because everything that I thought that I wanted, once I got it, I no longer wanted it. And I don't know if that touches or hits home with any of you all right now, but I just could not get past it. Very confusing for me because I've been so driven my entire life that once I started making decisions that I thought I wanted and I got those things, I was like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I thought that these things would leave me feeling a certain way and now I don't. So how am I supposed to continue making decisions if I know maybe my decision maker is broke? And that's kind of where I've been for like maybe the last year. I feel like every decision I've made, it's been out of force. I knew it was just what I needed to do, whether that be moving apartments or, you know, paying my taxes. It was like, before that, I had actively been a decision maker in my life. And then I took like the back seat of my own life for a while. And I felt very, very, very frozen. And that's not like me. It's been a wild ride, okay? So, and this year has been insane. I've documented it quite a lot, but it's left me frozen, and maybe some of you are feeling that way.
Man,
okay?
when is she gonna get to the point?
One of the things I want to also point out is that this frozenness also came with the internal ping. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying with that, but it's almost like these little things. Like, for instance, today I broke a glass. That was very important to me. And I did not want to properly clean up the shards. And when I, dumbly enough, got a shard in my toe, my first ping mentally was, I want somebody to get this out of my foot for me, you know, like, and it's that mindset of I want somebody to save me. And I felt like that just kept coming up for me. So maybe you're feeling that way about decisions you need to make, and maybe you're taking a passive backseat, almost forcing others to then make the decision for you. Like, for instance, my rent is up, my lease is up at the end of this month, and I was faced with the decision of needing to figure out where I was going to relocate to. I looked at apartments. Nothing felt right, but I also think that maybe there were good and better and best decisions, but I just felt like I couldn't decide, right? Up until today, I have had and have been grappling with that decision. But if I would prolong that decision, somebody else would get the apartment that I actually internally wanted or knew was the best choice, and that would then in turn force me to make a decision.
Okay, I'm in a library editing, but that is exactly what happened. I waited too late to get back to the people, and now the place that I thought I wanted is no longer available. So I have no clue what I'm going to do in a few weeks in terms of living, and this is your sign to not wait until the last minute to make a decision. Learn from my mistake.
It goes from taking an active backseat of your life to putting yourself back in the driver's seat. Also, something that I have been realizing with starting therapy and really doing the inner work is realizing that you may generally gravitate towards, in certain areas, it doesn't always have to be across the board, you might generally be gravitating towards low-hanging fruit in your life. And what do I mean by that? I mean easy decisions that maybe don't directly correlate with your morals or values. Now, for me, I was very confused as to what my values are. I grew up in a religious cult, okay? So I had always had these values of what like made me a good person, or, you know, how can you have values and morals if you don't have God kind of headspace since birth. You know, it was like, this is what you believe. And I never really did the work to actually understand or figure those things out for myself. So totally understandable if, you know, maybe you don't really know what your values are. But I will link down below a worksheet my therapist sent me. It has like 50 different cards that you can swipe from, and you get to pick out your values. It's very difficult. So set aside like 30 minutes of your time, because you think you know your values until there's like 3 words that are synonyms and you're like, what the heck, you know? So anyway, gonna link that down below if you're struggling to learn your values. And then from there, I also want to note it's really important when you're doing this worksheet that you operate from your highest awareness of a better self. Okay, I noticed when I was doing these things that my first reaction was to choose old things that I placed value in that I've now learned from, to realize those things actually don't bring me fulfillment, and how about we make a different decision? And that's all we can do in life. I think I struggled for the longest time with the in-betweens and the transition periods of life and learning and growing. But if you always freeze in between transitions, you're gonna live your entire life frozen. And that was something that I have been guilty of, and I'm sure it maybe strikes home with one of you guys. So realizing maybe you're choosing the low-hanging fruit and making the easiest choice rather than a choice based on your values and direction. So for me, one of the things was like using beauty. And I think for women, it's fairly easy. And there's also just such an importance. And it's not that it's not important to take care of yourself and, you know, feel good about yourself, but the amount of time and effort that I put into beauty. There was this girl on here that said that she was tired of being stupid. It was this one trending video that was recommended to me, and it honestly couldn't have came at a better time. It was a video just talking about how there's only so much bandwidth you have in a day, and if you're focused on just the external appearance and the dedication to just looking beautiful all the time, then maybe you won't put that energy as much into things you actually are passionate about. And I think at the end of the day, there comes a point in your life where you realize, even if you are the most beautiful person in the room, the times where I was perceived as the most stunning person were the times where I was like the most shallow inside and the most just empty. And so I'm learning to make decisions that feel good rather than what like society wants from me, because those two things are vastly different. Okay, so using beauty was one of the things I used as to bring fulfillment. Okay, Susie, look over here.
I have to go to the bathroom, teacher.
Are you good? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Okay, go to the bathroom, take your hall pass, go. Okay, checking this off your list only to realize they're empty/pointless. I also wanted to touch on, and this is just a kind of a little subcategory, I don't want to delve too much into this because it can be murky waters, and I also still just don't know how I feel per se about it. But I wanted to touch on the sprinkle movement and the drizzle movement, and how when I operate, I love Shira 7, okay? But I notice when I'm driven to consume that type of content, it is when I'm not acting from my highest self and having faith in humanity that, you know, men can be better. Maybe if you're a tape consumer, you're basing your choices on trauma. And I think that that's something important to note. And sometimes just the awareness is all you need at the time being. Like, for the longest time, I realized that I was making decisions based off of my survival. And by survival, I mean perceived survival or perceived threats. Like if you had an experience when you were little of a dog biting your ear, you could walk past a fence with dogs that are sweet, puppies that are sweet, but you're still going to be traumatized because of those things. So perceived threats, it's important to differentiate. So anyway, like I find when I am in my lower self, I am consuming that type of content because I just don't have faith in humanity. Knowing that is sometimes all you need initially. Like, you can't always change everything all at once, but it is important to note. And I just kind of wanted to have that be like a little subcategory, that I think a lot of those movements are based in lacking faith in humanity, probably for good reason. But you know, that's why it's really important to have therapists and people in your corner that you can rewrite traumas through. Like, my best friend has been one of the most formative relationships I feel like I've had in my adult life, because it's allowed me the safe space to articulate stuff. And I think that that's just so important, is that we don't, even with like the politically correct movement and stuff like that, there's such an important conversation that needs to be had around vulnerability and honesty. And how are you supposed to be honest if you're always fearful of being canceled? And I think that's where you need to cultivate relationships and people outside of maybe social media that allow you that conversation in whatever areas you're struggling with, to be like, hey, I just think X, Y, and Z, and talk about it and analyze it and figure out why you feel that way, and then do your best to kind of take a tally and try to have rewriting type experiences. Go out of your way to rewrite those things. Like, for instance, I noticed, like I was saying before, that I really struggle with transitions. I noticed that a lot of my life, I was just waiting for the next big thing to happen. And in the in-between, I felt like I was just a sim hovering. And recently I walked past this one garden that was like a community garden. I wanted to do that for so long. I love gardening. I used to garden when I was a kid. And I've always had that kind of on my bucket list. But I'm about to relocate out of this apartment, and it's in this general vicinity. And so my knee-jerk reaction when I walked past was to be like, no, you know, you're about to leave. What's the point? And then I paused and I thought, that is limiting thinking, and also that is the in-between. And I need to take action in the in-between to build a fulfilling life. It is not about the milestones, because I've learned that those milestones can be vastly unfulfilling if that is what you're putting all of your eggs into the basket of. So focusing on the journey. And I know that's so cliche, but like trying to make days, moments gratifying, and not putting all of your stock in destination. Okay, moving on. So I talked about how therapy and relationships that allow you to rewrite experiences to show it's a safe space. That's really important. We need to work in tandem, but until we have rewritten those experiences / act in faith, nothing will change. This thing I wanted to talk about, Psychology in Seattle. Again, I will link these videos. Psychology in Seattle, if you're into psychology, has been an amazing resource to me. I might potentially, I don't even want to talk about it, but I might go back to school to become a psychologist. So I will link his video down below. But there was something he talked about recently, because he has a podcast, and it's him and this guy named Bob, and they talk about different things. And this one was talking about antisocial disorder or antisocial personality disorder. And one of the things underneath it, like a subcategory, was talking about Kohlberg's theory of moral development, which actually really helped me, because there were areas I was realizing in my life I was operating out of such a juvenile point of view, and I don't know how to say it other than that. Like, it was not my highest self, but I didn't understand why. And I think until you understand why, it's almost easy to guilt yourself. And sometimes guilting yourself can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you feel guilt, that's not really a motive. I mean, guilt can be a motivator, but it's not like a great motivator. And so, like, for me, a lot of my decisions were very internalized guilt ridden, but just talking about like how maybe if your growth or personal development was stunted by trauma or whatever, there's certain things in mental development that maybe you didn't get a chance to develop around. Like maybe your caretakers were very mentally stunted as well, you know? So just realizing that a lot of the decisions are based in things that maybe were outside of our control originally, but that awareness again changes our potential for a different outcome. So awareness is key. Okay, so the solution. Finally, the solution. And I'll put the chapters to where everybody can kind of click through at their own thing. Keep what resonates. Don't take what doesn't. Not here to really stir the pot, just to get your mind thinking, okay? So make a mental/physical list of areas you feel like you're making choices that don't represent your values. If you don't know your core values, again, do a worksheet. I'll link it down below. And given the choice between a safe choice and expansion, if you have a safety net, which is key to note, and again, safety can be perceived safety again. So like, I think it's hard, say you have a friend that is in a very toxic relationship, but they don't feel it's safe to leave because maybe they're in a job that also is toxic or doesn't provide them the financial equity to be able to relocate, or whatever those things are, whether it's true or not. It's important that you work then to take a mental tally of the areas where you don't feel safe and work to build those things up to where you then can make the leap into decisions that feel authentic and more in alignment with your core values, okay? So if you have a safety net, choose expansion. If you don't have a safety net, work with the tools you have to build up areas that need nets before making a jump, okay? Ask yourself, does this choice expand you, expand your future, or the possibilities of your life? If yes, go with that choice. If the decision will shrink, silence you, etc., the answer should be no. Okay? Instead of pros and cons lists, which are played out, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then how likely is that will happen? / would it be worse than the reality you're already in? And that's been something that's really, really helped me with decision making. Like for instance, the main reason that I am relocating out of this apartment is a safety concern. The apartment that I found that I think I want is one in which the area around it isn't amazingly safe, but it's not awful, and it would be a lot better than the area I'm in currently. So when faced with decisions that maybe don't feel very clear cut, using that type of format to kind of propel yourself forward is beneficial. The point is, have grace with yourself. Knowing what led me to where I am today helps me understand it was for my own survival, but we can't live there. The idea is to get past survival instinct, survival mentality in as many ways as possible and operate from an ecosystem internally and surround yourself with people that also operate from a place of moral higher ground. And the only way we can do that is by bringing awareness to the areas that we maybe need help, understanding what led us to make those decisions, building up safety nets, building up friendships, having interpersonal relationships that rewrite those things, and then from there, doing the decisions that elevate us instead of cutting us off from ourselves and those we love. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this type of content, as always, like my video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.